Number 10, the phantom face outside the window. There is no entity looking into the space shuttle Discovery. What astronauts experience in the sterile, abyssal void isn't a haunting. It is a catastrophic biological glitch. When the human brain is thrown into the absolute sensory deprivation of space, it cannot process the deafening silence. It begins to eat itself. Desperate for data, your neural pathways hallucinate familiar patterns like a human face just to survive the crushing, indifferent isolation. You are not seeing a ghost. You are watching your own sensory system crumble under the weight of nothingness. If your own mind fabricates entities just to hide the terrifying reality of the void, what else is your biology lying to you about? Number 9, the deception goes much deeper. You trust your eyes. You believe that seeing is believing, but everything you think you perceive is a lie. What humans call vision is not an absolute law of physics. It is merely a localized weather condition, an illusion forged by the standard atmospheric pressure wrapping our planet. To understand how fragile this illusion is, picture a perfectly polished bowling ball. Now, breathe on it. That microscopic, evaporating film of mist left by your breath, that is our entire atmosphere. A single, indifferent cosmic sneeze could blow it away instantly. When that protective mist is stripped away, human perception completely shatters. Take the infamous man on the moon anomaly from the Apollo missions. People see a mysterious, upright figure standing in the desolate distance, but they aren't looking at an alien structure. They are witnessing the catastrophic failure of the human brain. On Earth, we judge distance through atmospheric scattering. Objects further away look hazy, but the universe is a sterile, primordial vacuum. The pressure is exactly zero. There is no air, and therefore, no haze. In the abyssal dark, there is zero visual distortion. Because of this, your biological hardware loses all ability to calculate depth. Without an atmosphere, a microscopic speck of dust floating just 2 inches from a camera lens looks mathematically identical to a colossal mountain range 60 miles away. Your biology evolved to function inside a tiny, warm bubble of gas. Out there, in the naked radiation of the cosmos, your eyes are useless. You are utterly blind to the true scale of the void. Number 8, what is even more disturbing is what happens when your ears try to fill that void. There is a documented phenomenon among astronauts who spend extended periods in the abyssal dark. They call it the space choir. Alone in their sterile metal cages, suspended hundreds of miles above the Earth, they report hearing faint melodic humming. It sounds like an invisible orchestra, or a chorus of voices singing in harmony through their headsets. But the universe does not sing for us. According to data analyzed by NASA and peer-reviewed studies published in the journal Nature, these sounds have a coldly clinical explanation. You are not hearing angels. You are listening to the completely incoherent shrieks of plasma waves. The space around our planet is not an empty vacuum. It is a turbulent, invisible ocean of charged particles trapped in Earth's magnetic field. When a spacecraft plows through these magnetic fault lines, the sheer force of the electromagnetic radiation interacts directly with the ship's radio communication systems. The equipment intercepts these massive, violent energy shifts and translates them into audible frequencies. It sounds like a choir, but it is actually the sound of an indifferent cosmos grinding against your fragile technology. Consider the brutal mathematics of human perception. The absolute maximum speed of a nerve impulse traveling through the human body is a pathetic 120 meters per second. These electromagnetic plasma storms are sweeping across your hull at the universal speed limit. By the time the acoustic vibration hits your eardrum, and that sluggish biological signal finally reaches your brain to register as a sound, the magnetic disturbance has already swept through and choked your communication bands. You are fundamentally incapable of processing the reality of the event in real time. Listening to these plasma waves is like trying to hear the fluttering wings of a single mosquito while standing inside the eye wall of a Category 5 hurricane. The mosquito isn't singing to you. Your equipment is simply groaning under the crushing weight of a planetary magnetic field. The comforting voices you think you hear, they are just the deafening silence of the void, exposing the absolute limits of your biological hardware. Number 7 and 6. But the horror is not limited to radio interference. Sometimes, the threat physically strikes the hull. In 2003, aboard the Shenzhou 5, an astronaut experienced the ultimate horror of isolation. Floating in the sterile vacuum, he heard a distinct metallic tap. It came from outside the ship. There is no air in space. There is no wind. Yet, the knocking continued. It was rhythmic, deliberate. Decades earlier, the Apollo 11 crew reported a similar impossibility, a glowing red light pulsing and pacing their module as they navigated the abyssal dark. Humanity desperately wants these anomalies to be evidence of life. We want to believe someone is knocking at the door, but the universe is entirely indifferent to our desire for company. According to aerospace dynamics data published in Science magazine and corroborated by the European Space Agency, there are no visitors out there. What those astronauts experienced was the catastrophic physics of thermal expansion. When you orbit the Earth, you are not gliding through a peaceful sky. You are constantly being thrown between two violent extremes. In the shadow of the Earth, the temperature of deep space plummets toward absolute zero, resting at a freezing 2.7 Kelvin. At this temperature, the atomic structure of the spacecraft's hull becomes rigid and violently contracted. But the moment the ship crosses the orbital terminator, the razor-thin line separating Earth's night from day, it is violently slammed by direct, unfiltered solar radiation. In an environment with zero atmospheric pressure to absorb or scatter the heat, the temperature on the ship's outer skin spikes by hundreds of degrees Fahrenheit in a fraction of a second. The titanium and aluminum alloys of the spacecraft are forced to endure a violent, localized shock. To understand the sheer violence of this event, imagine taking a frozen glass prism, chilled to minus 273.15 degrees Celsius, and hurling it directly into the molten core of a blast furnace. The glass doesn't just warm up, it violently rebels against the sudden injection of kinetic energy. The same applies to a space module. The metal warps, it expands, it physically strains against its own rivets. The glowing red light seen by Apollo 11, it was likely a piece of their own thermal shielding, snapped off by this brutal temperature swing, catching the blinding glare of the sun. The knocking on the Shenzhou was not a greeting from an alien neighbor. It was the acoustic shriek of aerospace metal warping under catastrophic thermal stress. It was the sound of the structural integrity of the ship being pushed to its absolute breaking point. The astronaut wasn't listening to a message. He was listening to the walls of his own sanctuary, threatening to crumble around him. The metal groans, expanding and contracting, acting as the only barrier standing between the fragile biological glitch inside and the freezing void outside. If that metal fatigues, if that rhythmic knocking turns into a sudden crack, the vacuum will not hesitate. It will pull the air from your lungs, and your biological functions will cease. And there will be no sound at all. Number 5 and 4, yet even when the hull holds, the mind can still betray you. In 1984, 6 Soviet cosmonauts reported a miracle. They looked out the window of their orbital station and saw 7 colossal entities made of pure, glowing light. They described them as angels, with wings stretching for miles, smiling peacefully into the cabin. It is a beautiful thought, but the abyssal void does not send guardians to watch over us. The sterile vacuum of space only takes. Those cosmonauts were not looking at divine beings. They were watching the catastrophic failure of their own suffocating nervous systems. According to Aerospace Medical Data and Biological Limit Studies published in PubMed, the miracle of Salyut 7 was a textbook case of localized hypoxia, severe oxygen deprivation. The human body is an incredibly fragile biological glitch, designed to function strictly under the warm blanket of an Earth-like atmosphere. Space operates at a pressure of exactly 0. If a life support system hesitates, or a micro-leak compromises the cabin, the results are mathematically merciless. At 0 pressure, it takes exactly 15 seconds for a human to lose consciousness. But in those 15 seconds before the dark takes you, your biological hardware begins to violently misfire. Your retinas are the most oxygen-hungry tissues in your body. When starved of breathable air, the optic nerve degrades rapidly. This retinal hypoxia triggers severe visual distortions, often manifesting as a blinding orange glow and massive wing-like phantoms in the peripheral vision. The cosmonauts were exhausted, overworked, and breathing recycled, thinning air in a decaying metal tube. Those majestic, smiling angels spanning miles across the void, they were just the dying screams of starving neurons. It is exactly like watching a fragile incandescent light bulb. Right before the filament completely burns out from a catastrophic short circuit, it flares up in one final blinding flash of light. The universe wasn't welcoming them. It was quietly trying to erase them. And their brains simply painted a pretty picture over the terrifying reality of their own asphyxiation. Number 3, but suffocation is a slow death. The universe has far faster executioners. When Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin closed their eyes to sleep on their journey to the moon, they were not met with peaceful darkness. They saw brilliant flashes of white, blue, and gold dancing behind their eyelids. This was no psychological trick. It was a terrifying physical reality. According to the official data from NASA's investigation, the universe was firing directly into their skulls. Deep space is flooded with high-energy cosmic rays, subatomic fragments violently ejected from the depths of ancient stars. These particles act as microscopic, armor-piercing rounds. They rip seamlessly through the metal hull of the Apollo spacecraft. They phase through the astronauts' helmets and skulls without resistance. When these particles smashed into the fluid inside their eyeballs, they triggered a microscopic sonic boom of light known as Cherenkov radiation. Consider the terrifying mathematics of this biological assault. It takes the human brain approximately 13 milliseconds to process a visual image. But these cosmic bullets are moving at nearly the speed of light, 299,792,458 meters per second. The flashes the astronauts saw were the literal sparks of their own DNA being physically severed from the inside out. The radiation was actively erasing their genetic code faster than their neural pathways could even register the event. In the abyssal dark, your biology is painfully obsolete. You die before you know you are being hit. Number 2, and here lies the ultimate paradox of human spaceflight. To survive the sterile void, humanity builds multi-billion-dollar cages of aluminum and titanium. We do this because the alternative is mathematically unforgiving. In the absolute zero pressure of the vacuum, a phenomenon known as ebulism takes over. The boiling point of your blood, saliva, and tears drops below your own body temperature. Your bodily fluids boil instantly while you are still conscious. So, you hide behind the metal, but that very armor is a death trap. Deep space is flooded with primary cosmic rays, subatomic shrapnel traveling at a fraction of the speed of light. When these high-energy particles slam into the spacecraft's hull, they do not simply stop. They collide with the metal atoms and shatter into a catastrophic shower of secondary radiation inside the cabin. It is exactly like hiding under a thin tin roof during a relentless artillery strike. The artillery shell doesn't need to hit you directly. It hits the roof, blowing it apart, and it is the thousands of jagged shards from your own shelter that shred your flesh. By shielding you from the vacuum, human engineering inadvertently turns the spacecraft into a closed-loop biological particle accelerator. There is no engineering solution. If you thicken the walls of the ship, you only provide more atomic mass for the cosmic rays to smash against, creating an even denser, deadlier storm of secondary radiation. You are trapped in a suffocating paradox. If a sudden solar event or cosmic ray burst sweeps through, it could bathe the cabin in catastrophic energy. According to the absolute limits of human biology, an acute exposure of 10 sieverts guarantees a 100% fatal outcome within weeks. Your DNA is quietly unzipped, and you rot from the inside out while floating helplessly in a multi-million-dollar tomb. Our greatest technology doesn't actually protect us from the indifferent universe. It just forces us to choose a slower, more agonizing way to be erased. Number 1. Which brings us to the final delusion. In 1985, astronauts aboard the Space Shuttle Discovery reported something impossible outside their window. A colossal, translucent entity made of pure light. It pulsed and expanded, shifting colors as it drifted alongside the spacecraft. It looked like a living, breathing creature pacing them in the endless void. Other missions reported similar glowing orbs, plasma entities that seemed to watch the fragile human ships with deliberate curiosity. But there is no curiosity in the cosmos. There is only a deafening silence. According to NASA telemetry data, the majestic, glowing jellyfish was not an alien observer. It was a cloud of ionized gas. It was the frozen, chemical exhaust violently expelled by the shuttle's own thruster plumes, interacting with the charged particles of the vacuum. Humanity is so desperate for companionship in this sterile graveyard that we literally hallucinate intelligence in our own engine waste. We look out into the infinite, hoping to find an ancient, primordial consciousness staring back at us. We want to believe that our biological glitch of an existence matters. We want to believe that the universe is a dark forest filled with predators, because even being hunted implies that we are worth noticing. But the scale of cosmic indifference is catastrophic. In an observable universe spanning 93 billion light-years, containing more than 10 to the 24th power planets, all of human history is a single, meaningless spark that has already been forgotten. There is no one knocking on the hull. There are no angels of light. There is only the cold, mechanical grinding of physical laws waiting for our sun to burn out and our atoms to crumble. We always peer into the void, hoping to see a face. We are looking for neighbors, but we might only find their graves. Thank you for watching and sticking till the end. We've got plenty more videos coming in the future. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss them. See you in the next one.